the USA enters another war with Iran. But I just want to say, if you're concerned about this, you actually might want to watch to the end because I actually have some good news. But let me tell you what's happening, because this is actually not a gamble by the United States, but it's actually not always good news. Let me explain. So the US decided, because Iran and Israel have been in contention, US is going to defend Israel, which means that because the US is defending Israel, because they're allies and they always have been, if Iran has attacked Israel and retaliated, then Israel has asked the US for help and then the US has responded. So now we're in war with Iran on Israel's side. Now, there's many in the US who believes that this is exactly what Trump promised he wouldn't do, that he would not get US into another war. However, let me remind you that that's 50% of the US. The other 50% of the US believe something that actually Ted Cruz said. And this is not something that is just one or two people. Millions of people believe what I'm about to tell you. And here is what Ted Cruz said. Ted Cruz said that in the Bible, any nation that defends Israel will be blessed. Now, I will tell you, the Bible doesn't necessarily say that, or it is taken out of context. Because in the New Covenant, which is where we are right now, all of those things were no longer true. But because many Christians believe that, and the US is a Christian country, that has been a long-standing fact that any nation that defends Israel will be prosperous. Now, because half of the US believes that, and Trump represents that half of the US, not going to war to defend Israel would be considered a mistake. And so then there's 50% of the US that's actually very glad that Trump stepped in to defend Israel. You may not believe this, but half of America does. And if you think about it, there is no reason for the US not to believe that this is true. So the US had decided to step in on Israel's side. Let me tell you, this is what the US decided to do. Trump, in order to keep his promise of not involving US troops in that conflict, decided not to send troops on the ground, but instead decided to send 3 planes and to bomb 3 nuclear sites in Iran. So that's what they decided to do. Now, because they're just over airspace, technically that might be considered a war crime, because going into Iran's airspace without their authority, bombing their nuclear sites and then leaving, that violates international airspace law. But the US doesn't care. So they went in, they bombed, they left. Trump announced that they got home safely all the way back to the US. No problem. Here's the thing. Iran, shortly after that, went on national TV and said the US has started a war and Iran will finish it. Iran is expected to make some type of retaliation, and we don't know what that's going to be. One, Iran doesn't have the missile capability to touch the US. One, the US has a missile defense system. If there is any missile that comes to the US mainland or even Hawaii, they can be intercepted by the US missile system. So the chances of a missile actually landing in the US is actually quite small. The second is that people might be thinking, oh, this might be cause for a terrorist attack. Okay. In the last 20 years, 25 years, the chances of someone hijacking a plane, that what happened in 9/11, that's just not as possible today, because security today is so much more tight than it was before 9/11. Before 9/11, people used to walk onto just planes and they used to arrive like half an hour before and they used to just get on, no problem. It was a free-for-all. Now, there is like an entire line and there are dogs sniffing around. The chances of someone getting by, not very high. So that probably won't happen again. So you're safe to fly unless you're talking about Boeing. But people are also wondering, if it's not a terrorist attack and if it's not missiles, how else would it do it? And many people are pointing to trains. Trains are exactly what airplanes used to be around 30, 40 years ago, which is, it used to be a free-for-all. And that's what trains are right now. So then, could there be a train attack in New York City? Well, it is actually quite possible. So then the mayor of New York decided that he is going to double, triple, or even 5x the amount of police officers that are monitoring the trains in New York City, because major cities like New York, California, and Chicago have always been at risk for retaliation, and even Washington, D.C. So this is what's happening right now. Because Trump and the US have decided to defend Israel, Iran has said, okay, we are going to retaliate not only against Israel, but against the USA. Here is something that the US needs to keep in mind. The philosophy of Iran is not that Iran wants to win by overpowering Israel and the US. Iran wins by outlasting Israel and the US. It knows it can't win. But if you expect Iran to just give up, Iran is willing to get their country to the floor and then tire out the resources of Israel and the US for the next 2 decades. That's Iran's war tactic. You also have to remember, Iran is not a poor country. They have oil reserves. They're actually the most oil-rich country in the Middle East. And so to say that Iran is going to run out of money, it's actually not quite true. And so Iran is actually prepared to go all the way down in this war. Many people believe that this is actually because of the oil, why the US would be interested, why Israel would be interested. And that is debatable. Obviously, a couple of years ago when the US lied, almost 20 years ago, to enter Iran and Iraq war, that was based on a lie. So right now, is the US trying to do the same thing? We hope not. We hope this is a de-escalation. But even in the end, let me tell you how I'm actually going to make money from all of this. Because this is not the first time that the US has been at war. In the last 30 years, there hasn't been a single year that the US hasn't been at war with someone. Ever. So then, when you see the headlines that this is World War III, etc., it's actually not new. It's not new for the US to be at war with someone over there. It's not new. The only thing that's new is that this is a new president. Or it's not new, and it's not even his first term, it's his second term. So thinking about this is the end of the world is just not very helpful. And so then let me give you some good news. One, if you are thinking about how this can make money, the markets are likely going to crash because of war and uncertainty. There's a quote from Warren Buffett that says, when there is fear in the market, that's when you should be greedy. And when there is greed in the market, that's when you should be fearful. So this week and this month probably, there's probably going to be a lot of fear because people don't know what's about to happen. And that's when you should get greedy. Now is actually the time to buy. Now is actually the time to look at all of the stocks that are going to tank and start to pick and choose. This is a company that's probably going to do well in 18 months, even though it's down right now. This is a company that's going to do well in the next decade, even though it's down right now. And start to pick up on these things. Google just is implementing an AI play, which means that if Google is down, it's going to actually benefit from the AI race. And so that's one of the purchases I'm looking into. Now, I won't tell you more because that's probably for another video. Actually, I'll tell you a couple more. Zscaler is another company that's actually poised to do very, very well. If OpenAI goes public, that's going to do extremely well. And there are literally a bunch of other AI companies that are poised to do exceptionally well. Uber is also still expanding. Netflix continues to break deals, etc., etc., etc. If you are looking at the numbers for these companies, then you'll find some real winners. And of course, if the world goes into war, Palantir will do exceptionally well. So my point is, if you are looking for opportunities, while all of the chaos is going on, you'll actually come out on top and you'll make a lot of money. And then once they decide that, and this will happen, once they decide, hey, we have reached a deal, we have de-escalated the situation, there is a ceasefire, guess what the markets are going to do? Immediately, it's going to pop again. And that announcement will probably come within the next 18 months. So then, if you can survive 18 months of uncertainty, after that, the markets are going to skyrocket and you'll see a tremendous difference in what the markets promise. Remember, Trump does not want the stock market to tank. And so then if he is working on this trade deal and he wants to go into midterms and the Republicans want to keep seats, etc., etc., and they want everything to be opposite, then that means by the time that 2026 comes, they need to have some reassurance for the population that, hey, we are doing what we said that we do, we're getting peace, and so they're going to work overtime to try to secure these deals. And then when it happens, the stock market is going to shoot for the stars. What I'm doing right now, I promise you, will continue in this video. So, YouTube put it out, I think you should watch it, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't panic, just keep watching.